So a lot of you have asked me to do a follow-up on Stephen Miller, and here's why I think this matters. Last time we talked about Miller's ideology, his ties to white nationalist organizations, his history, where his worldview comes from. Today I want to talk about something different, how he actually operates within this regime. Understanding the ideology is one thing. Understanding the operational mechanics of how one unelected person controls federal policy across multiple agencies, that's what really gets us to the heart of this issue. And the stuff I'm going to talk about today is not really speculation. It's documented and reported on by multiple news organizations and outlets, and some of this shit even comes from within the administration itself. So let's get into it. Stephen Miller's official title is Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy and Homeland Security Advisor. It sounds like a relatively minor role, policy advisor, but here's what NPR reported. Steve Bannon and others associated with the administration jokingly call him the Prime Minister. The Atlantic's Ashley Parker, after months of reporting, said there are few people with more power in America today. So what's the actual structure? Every single day, Trump meets with two people to plot executive actions. Chief of Staff Susie Wiles and Stephen Miller. Every executive order that gets signed or goes out of the Oval Office goes through these three people. But here's kind of the interesting dynamic. Wiles kind of recedes from the spotlight. Miller kind of rushes towards it. He's always on the news channels. He's always out there kind of pushing this agenda and this narrative. And unlike almost everybody else in Trump's orbit, Miller has survived across both administrations. Sources say that he has survived because he has never used his proximity to Trump for financial gain, and Trump values that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And Miller is really good at channeling Trump's political instincts and applying those to actual policy making. Now let's talk about how Miller actually controls policy on a day-to-day basis. Every morning at 10 a.m., including on Saturdays, Miller runs a conference call. The White House calls it a policy call to ensure interagency coordination, but here's what it really is. Senior leadership from DHS, ICE, DOJ, and multiple other agencies get on this call. Miller demands updates like how many arrests happened yesterday, what are today's deportation numbers looking like, why didn't you hit your targets, and where are my progress reports. Multiple sources describe Miller as militant in his enforcement of these goals, and he's keenly focused on numbers, how many arrests per day, how many deportations are happening, and so on. The pressure doesn't stop. Miller calls DHS Secretary Kristi Noem multiple times a day, not just the 10 a.m. call, and applies pressure there. And this pressure flows down from Miller to agency heads to mid-level managers to agents on the street and so on. As a result, agents feel pressure to hit the numbers. They're casting wider nets. They're arresting people without criminal records because the metric is arrests per day. It's not accuracy. It's not mission. It's not justice. They just need fucking numbers. So what are the metrics? Miller set a daily quota of 3,000 immigration arrests per day. They're not hitting it. They're averaging somewhere between 1,100 and 1,800 arrests per day. But the quota itself tells you what matters. It's not arresting people with criminal records or focusing on the worst of the worst. Just 3,000 per day. Get me my 3,000 per day. Now here's the part that's harder to see but maybe more important. Miller controls what information reaches Trump. Miller is Trump's main speechwriter. He is noted among colleagues for having the ability to translate Trump's voice into text. But it's not just translation, it's selection and framing. What data gets emphasized and which data gets cast aside. In this way, one of his superpowers is binge feeding carefully curated data to a portion of the population that only lives through practicing confirmation bias. Miller also has extraordinary control over the Department of Justice. He's a non-lawyer with what Trump aides describe as striking influence over the AG. He has regular contact with DOJ officials at all levels. He pressured the acting Deputy Attorney General to be more aggressive in firing FBI officials. He called a U.S. attorney to tell him how to defend the travel ban. And in May of 2025, Miller publicly stated the administration was considering suspending habeas corpus for immigrants. It's not a policy proposal. That's a fucking constitutional crisis statement from an unelected official. Here's what most people don't know. Miller's influence goes way beyond immigration. The public associates him with immigration because that's his public face. But reporting shows that Miller has major role in Homeland Security, obviously, DOJ operations and prosecutions, foreign policy, where he was a driving force behind the Venezuela capture plan and is the driving force behind the whole Greenland thing, trade policy, education policy. He's really the tip of the spear on this war on higher education. An NPR profile said a lot of the controversial policies coming out of this administration are either being dreamed up by Stephen Miller or executed by Stephen Miller. He's not just an immigration advisor, he's operating across the entire federal government. One more thing we need to talk about here. He started out in life performing cruelty, now he just is cruel. An external White House advisor talking about the family separation policy and the photos that came out around the separated children at the border said of Miller that Stephen actually enjoys seeing those pictures at the border. Miller's response to that policy, when pressed about it, he called it a simple decision. The shit conditions in the separated families was an easy choice for him to make. That's pretty telling. This is about someone who finds satisfaction in causing suffering, and he's built a system that produces that suffering at scale every single day through quotas, pressure, and fear. So why does all of this matter? Why focus on one person again? Because understanding how authoritarian systems work actually help us in dealing with them. Understanding that Trump is impulse, Trump is chaos, Trump steals money and shits his pants. Miller is the operating system inside of the Oval Office, arguably more so than the actual chief of staff, Susie Wiles. He's not just winning today's policy battles, he's building a permanent infrastructure for authoritarian governance, and he's only 40 years old. The daily 10 a.m. calls, the quota systems, the pressure campaigns, the personal networks, his DOJ connections, the information filtering, the media amplification, none of this is improvisation. Stephen Miller is the loud, aggressive enforcer who makes the machine run through daily operational control, impossible metrics, and relentless pressure. So what do you do with this information? First, understand that this is how authoritarian consolidation actually works. It's not flashy. It's 10 a.m. conference calls and arrest quotas and filtered information and pressure campaigns. Second, when you hear administrative rhetoric about the worst of the worst criminals, check it against the actual operational reality. They're setting quotas of 3,000 arrests per day. That's not targeting criminals, it's targeting numbers. To force our federal law enforcement agencies to go on a shock and awe campaign inside of our own cities, inside of our own country. Third, watch the mechanisms, not just the messaging. Things like the 10 a.m. calls matter more than the press conferences. And fourth, remember that systems built on fear and cruelty are inherently unstable. They require constant outward pressure to keep opposition down in order to maintain themselves. When that pressure is turned back on itself through things like legal resistance, bureaucratic resistance, and public resistance, shit starts getting wobbly. So we keep documenting, we keep verifying and validating, we keep showing how the machine actually works, and we apply that social pressure. That's our swim lane, and it seems to be working. People can't resist what they can't see clearly. It's really important to stay informed, stay regulated. I'm Ian. This is the Decency Rebellion.